Alrighty, welcome back to another video of GM Builds, final week of the season. Let's get this underway. I'll show the Titan builds first for this week. It is the Synaptic Battlegrounds coming. Quick heads up, Titan only really relies on two builds again, primarily the whole season. I think Titans have been kind of dog shit, and that's just being brutal as hell. Anytime I've only ever used two specific builds, and I've only ever seen people use the same builds. But we'll get straight into the main point of the video, and we'll go straight to the builds right now. So the first build is just going to be a T-Crash build, or the hot swap between that or Harvey Moss Light, whatever you're more comfortable with. I believe it is a Arc Surge this week, as well as a Strand Surge. If I'm wrong, it would be Arc and Void Surge. If I am wrong, I don't really know. I haven't really been playing the game as much, but I have done this Nightfall multiple times, and this was the best Titan build that I could really see for Arc, or pretty much just Arc in general. So what you want to be using is obviously Harmonic Siphon, Ashes to Assets, Heavy Ammo Finder. You want to also be using Heavy-Handed, Bolstering Detonation, and a Loader type weapon. I would recommend using a machine gun this week. Machine guns and Wish Ender are probably the best combination you'll have. Yes, it's not a delete build, but it's an ammo consumption build that is very, very stable. You want to be having maybe reserves if you feel like it. I like to use reserves, as well as having a double resist right here. I would recommend using a arc resist and a void resist. You can go triple threat and just go all three resistors if you want. I also use innovation. I use a weapon mod or a surge mod for whatever I'm using. I believe I used a rocket one or two times on this character, so that's why it's just stasis, and a scavenger mod. Otherwise, you want to be using not distribution but powerful attraction, and then use one distribution as well as bomber. And this is the aspects you want to be using on your striker subclass. You want to have T-Crash. If you're not using T-Crash, then please don't even bother. You want to have Thruster, Seismic Strike, or you want to be using the Thunderclap. I highly doubt that anyone should be using Ballistic Slam. If you are, you might have some mental problems, so get fixed out, please. Pulse Grenade, Knockout, and Touch of Thunder. Spark of Ions, Spark of Resistance, Spark of Shock, and Spark of Magnitude. If you're not using this on a Arc build, then you're going to struggle. Magnitude, Pulse Grenade, and Ions. That combination is just pretty much immediate infinite grenade builds, especially set with a Heart of Moss Light build. So we'll go on to the second build, which is my favorite by far for the Titan this season, and that's just a classic Strand build, obviously. This week you can actually switch between probably Quicksilver and Wish Ender. More or less, I would say still Wish Ender is goated for this over Quicksilver any day of the week. But let's get straight into it. So on the mods, you want to be using a Frontal Wisdom. You want to be able to get your super back as much as possible in this build. You can swap that out for something else if you don't want. You could use like Kinetic Siphon if you choose. That's your call. It just varies. Me, this is probably going to be a Kinetic Siphon itself. If you use more than one Siphon mod, it does have a higher quality of orb generation. Heavy Ammo Finder, and then I just go with Heavy-Handed, Momentum Transfer, and a Loader type mod. Triple resist mods here. Then I normally use a Weapon Surge, Scavenger again, and Better Already. So I gain health when I pick up an Orb of Light. I use Bomber. I can change these to Powerful Attractions if I want, or Bomber again, varies on your call, as well as a Reaper, so I'm constantly making orbs in general. What you want to be using with the Berserker class in general, you want to be having Into the Fray, Ninja's Lash, Shacklenade. Obviously these two you can't change. I use Rally Barricade, and this is why, one, it has a shorter cooldown, and two, you're less likely to get yourself or teammates killed by accident. 10-second cooldown is a major difference, especially in Destiny 2 and Titan builds entirely. I think most people kind of see that. Blade Fury as your super, obviously. Thread of Generation, Thread of Continuity, Thread of Mind, and Thread of Transmusicians. If you don't use any of these, then I recommend using it. This combination will get you Woven Mail and keep you alive longer throughout the entire run. I hope you enjoyed the Titan builds. We'll move on to the Warlock builds next. Warlock 1, there's about 3 builds and a combination build that relies on a Hunter. At the same time, the combination build, I would only say use if you I'll leave that to the very. Alrighty, we are on the Warlock now. Warlock, I've got 3 builds again, roughly, for this one. And the first one is kind of a mix between 2 helmets. It's whatever you feel more comfortable using. It's between Fallen Sunstar. I don't have the other helmet on me, but the other helmet I was referring to is the Crown of Tempest. So both of them are pretty much ability spam based, but Fallen Sunstar is more basically grenade spam, unlimited grenade spam. Whereas Crown is varietied towards everything in the build itself. Your healing, your arc, melees, everything. To get straight to the point of the build, but it's just a very of choice on what you want to use. Me, I like to use Fallen Sunstar, and I keep the same type of mod set for the entire build because it just works like that. Kinetic Siphon, you want to have Heavy Ammo Finder, Ashes to Assets, Fastball, Bolstering Detonation, Firepower, Triple Resist here, Insulation, Kinetic Surge, and Innovation, Double Bomber, and Powerful Attractions. On your modifications for Arc, you want to have Electrostatic Mind, Arc Soul, Pulse Nade, Ball Lightning, Healing Rift. I would not use Empowering, recommendation Healing all times, Spark of Ions, Spark of Volt, Spark of Magnitude, and Spark of Shock. And the main key factor to this is I recommend do not using Storm Trance. Storm Trance is useless, especially with the base cooldown of it in general. Like 9 minutes for a super is just ridiculous. But Chaos Reach is what you want to be using, so you use your super more frequently at the same time. Next into the build, it's going back over into Arc again. This time it is the Vesper build, so if you're going to be up close and personal with a lot of the ads, you want to be still using Ashes to Assets, Kinetic Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder. Pretty much every single mod in this build is a repeat of the previous build. I'm just going to be straight out there. Most Arc builds should be looking about the same. I'll let you quickly pause and check out the mods right now. Otherwise, bang, we'll go straight over into the subclass. Obviously, I use everything else here is actually kind of the same. There is a few differences in the build only because this is more affected to blinding. And that's Spark of Ion, Spark of Volts, Spark of Magnitude, and Spark of Shock. I just realized they're all the same thing, my bad. You can kind of put in Spark of Brilliance instead of Spark of Shock if you want. That's defeating a blinded target with precision damage, creates a blinding explosion. There are other blinding effects. I believe there are like 2 or 3 others in the mist. I don't really know where on the mods. I'll quickly try to rotate through them. I was wrong. There was only really the one. But yeah, no, here it was. Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. So, like I said, if you're going to go this type of route with Vesper, I would also recommend. That's just personal preference. I wouldn't go with that type of build. I would say just stick with the same loadout, stick with the same design, because the build works more towards nuking ads instead of blinding them. I know that's the whole point of the exotic, but the whole point of the exotic is to blind and release a shockwave around. To clarify, a lot of people you see using this build will never use something like blinding nades. I only recommend them if you're going into a full blind build. Otherwise, we'll get to the final part of this one, and that is going to be the Phoenix. I love this thing in general. When I am a Warlock, I normally go Arc because of Amplify instead. This season, Amplify has been really good. But what you want to be using on a Phoenix Protocol build is Kinetic Siphon, Font of Wisdom, Heavy Ammo Finder, a Loader, Impact Induction. I use Double Impact Induction, or Triple Resist in general, Absolution, Better Already, and a Scavenger mod, Powerful Attraction, and Double Bomber. What I rock on my solo build is a bit different. I go into a healing aspect of the game, so I am pretty much going to keep my team alive. Icarus Dash, Touch of Flame, Healing Nades, Incinerator Snap, Burst Glide, Healing Rift, Ember of Benevolence, Ember of Singeing, Ember of Searing, and Ember of Solace. Obviously, we're using Well of Radiance for the build, so that's what you want to be using for this type of build. I highly recommend these type of builds for Grandmasters, especially Healing Nades and some of the aspect combination. You can get your healing nade back in a click of a finger. That's just an example. Obviously, it does work with specific stat base, and the base stat area you want to go is obviously recovery, discipline, and resilience. Making sure you still have a decent intellect. About 40 to 50, primarily 50 to 60 is the best option to have for these type of builds. We'll go on to the hunter build, last and not least. Realistically, I'm going to be straightforward. Arc builds, realistically, you only have two options, and that's strand. Alrighty, we're on to the hunter builds. So what you want to be using for the hunter is pretty much, this is the strand build I'm going off right now. Two reasons I'm going off this build. You can also go off another build which I'll put up. I don't think it's going to be as effective, and I'll also shop the arc build that I use. But here it is pretty much. So I use the Cryothesiac helmet, or whatever you want to call it, the facade. I don't even know how to pronounce that thing. Just horrible. So a quick little detail on what the actual exotic does. Gain woven mail when activating grapple, increase flinch resistance while woven mail is active. What you want in the build is kinetic siphon, heavy, and a heavy ammo scout, and you want a heavy ammo finder, heavy-handed blistering detonation. That one there is a give or take. I would say use something else over that. Personally, you can use anything. I would say just probably use another heavy-handed in general. Like I said, that's your call or whatever. I otherwise use triple resist here, a kinetic surge mod, and then I use absolution better already, bomber, time dilation to keep some of these things going, because I kind of rotate through a lot of these type of mods, so this one here can actually change quite frequently. And then distribution. Otherwise, on the build itself, I use the grapple nade as well as willow silk and ensnaring slam, triple jump and maskman dodge. I wouldn't recommend any other dodge. Thread of warding, thread of generations, thread of binding, thread of continuity, and then you want to use silk strike. The other build that I was going on in the strand aspect will be the same, obviously modifications and stuff, but this is the arc and strand build that I swap between just the subclass base. But all it is the only main difference is just the modifications and the way it's built. So this is actually built with Malfeasance in mind due to using Lucky Pants. Kinetic Siphon, Heavy Ammo, Frontal Wisdom, Heavy Ammo Finder, Loader, Heavy Handed again, Bolstering Detonation, Triple Resist here should be your key core factor, Double Kinetic Surge, Time Dilation, Bomber, and Distribution. In here, instead of using grapple, you want to be using shackle nades instead of grapple. Otherwise, all the aspects and everything in the class are exactly the same as the previous build, so there is no change there. It's just use shackle instead. If you're not using shackle, then you're not actually utilizing the build correctly. That's kind of how it is. It's meant to be hang everything as well as nuke everything with the damage of Malfeasance. Yes, there's not a lot of taken enemies, but the taken predator perk with Vorpal works really good against bosses, and it kind of shreds most of their health. Last but not least, I actually use Omnioculus, and the way I rock this build is with Wishender. So what I use is Kinetic Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder, Heavy Ammo Scout, Double Melee Kickstart, and a 5-power mod, Void, Solar and Arc, Triple Resist, Absolution, Void Scavenger, Invigoration, Reaper, Outreach, and Proximity Ward. I use Omnioculus for this one so I can make me and my team invis, and it kind of makes our runs a lot safer. Otherwise, into the build, you want to be going with Trapper's Ambush and Vanishing Step. Then you want to have Suppressor Grenade, Snare Bomb, obviously, and Gambler's Dodge. You still want Gambler's Dodge no matter what, because you're using Snare Bomb linked with Trapper's Ambush. Echo of Dilation, Echo of Obscurity, Echo of Starvation, and Echo of Persistence with Triple Tether, so using Shattershot Mobibius Quiver. You can use the Deadfall if you want, but I would say Mobibius is better for damage and add clear, personally, on personal preference. The only other build that I'm going to say, this is more of a combination and a harmony build that works well with one of the exotics on the Warlock, and that was the Phoenix Protocol. And this is the build right now. It is a Orpheus Riggs Hunter based build. So what you want to rock for this type of build is Frontal Wisdom, Heavy Ammo Finder, Double Bolstering Det, Firepower, triple resist, absolution, invigoration, arc scavenger or whatever scavenger you're using, bomber, reaper, and proximity ward. Making sure you still got suppressor grenade. The main key aspect to this is using deadfall. So all the aspects in that are the same. There is no actual change among them. Always pretty much use the same aspects within the builds. They just work best, as well as the fragments. Otherwise, you want to be using deadfall, not Mabivius for this build. Mabivius, it will give you 3 tethers. Deadfall, any enemies that get pinged or tagged do just give you more super energy back. So yeah, these are the builds that I would recommend for this upcoming week's Nightfall. And I don't think I mentioned what the Nightfall was. Obviously, that will be in the title of the video, but it is the battleground on the moon, or the moon battleground, whatever you want to call it. Do be careful. I'm not sure if they fixed the glitch with the Lucent Hive Bearer or whatever at the start, where it cancels out you getting platinum. So if they haven't fixed that one, do be careful. There are a lot more videos based on that, so I'm not really going to get into detail on that. Otherwise, I hope this helped you. Otherwise, peace out.